Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to BiblioTech on Air, BiblioTech's official podcast. I'm Rosanna.
I'm Lewis.
Yeah, I'm Romeo.
And today we're going to be talking about our latest Libros and Libations read, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. But we'll be talking about it tomorrow, so tune in tomorrow.
Bye, everybody.
No, but with that said, we just had our discussion about it. There's some pretty mixed point of views that you're going to be hearing about that book right now, but if you are curious, it is available on Cloud Library with your BiblioTech library card. So make sure you don't sleep on that and get one if you haven't already. So with that, I guess we could get right into the questions.
Yeah, I want to preface by saying if you didn't like the intermezzo discussion, you might not like this one either, but we'll go from there. So the title, right, you mentioned Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. So I wanted to ask, so how does the title, which is borrowed from the famous Macbeth speech, relate to the themes of the story as a whole? And does the title mean anything to you?
There's an entire scene at the end where it reveals that Marx, who is one of the three main core team of this video game company that becomes Unfair Games, he had originally pitched the name Tomorrow Games, and it's because it was from his very favorite Shakespearean monologue, what have you. From Macbeth, and it goes into explaining why, and he reads off the whole thing and stuff like that. I don't know if I fully still understand the significance of it. Where it's just tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Is it just grief is going to continue, but life also continues on, sort of thing? That was my take on it, but in terms of the actual parallel, either I understood it last night and don't remember now, or I still don't. It just never clicked for me.
I think it has a reference in two ways, because in the book we do see not tomorrow, tomorrow, and tomorrow, but we see different things where it's referred to this and this and this and. But also I think the one that I think it refers to more, in my opinion, is the fact that this book spans over several decades. So it's just kind of tomorrow, and then, this part of the book, tomorrow, and this part of the book, tomorrow, this part of the book. So just kind of showing that it's ongoing.
More of a timeline. Yeah, I said that during the book club in person, that I still didn't think I understood it fully, even after the explanation that Marx gave, because he mentioned that he wanted a name, instead of Unfair Games, right? He wanted it to be Tomorrow Games, and he talks about, what is a game? It's tomorrow. And I was like,
I kind of get it.
So George at the podcast, at the Libros and Libations in person, he made a pretty good point. He said, I took it to mean it's a video game, the coin operated, it's you always have another life so long as you have another quarter type thing. So you're always constantly playing. I know you hadn't gotten there yet. I thought that kind of made some sense. I was like, you know what? That's a really interesting way of looking at it. So
that's fair. And they also do touch on the whole, the immortality of games. I think, frankly, way too much. I think the point of oh yeah, in a video game, you always have an extra life, but in this one, you don't.
Yeah.
I feel like that was brought up ad nauseum, just so much. But I think in terms of at least in terms of the idea of when you do create something, regardless if it's video game, other form of art, when you create something, that legacy sort of outlives you, and it does grant you a type of immortality because you made your mark on some people, and you made a piece of art that people are still going to be viewing and playing and all that sort of thing. So there is a kind of immortality. Even long past you're gone, you have your legacy of tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow,
Which kind of gives Ready Player One vibes in a way.
It did. I think we mentioned that a little bit before you got there also, that there were some elements. This book came out in 2022, I think, and Ready Player One is 2009.
Yeah.
There were some elements of, I'm not talking plagiarism or anything like that, but just elements of the augmented reality and that escaping into that kind of world. I mean, that wasn't new in itself when Ready Player One did that, but I just feel I think several of us felt like it was very reminiscent to that book and that read and kind of how it played out. So
I unfortunately think this book was reminiscent of Ready Player One in the worst way, where it has I took a lot of umbrage with how this book was written, especially for the first 3/4, and we will get into that potentially. But I will say it had this habit of just being oh, this is just like that video game. Remember that video game? Everyone at home getting the reference? If not, look it up. It might be before your time. It just it feels... That's something that I took umbrage with Ready Player One also, is that I know it's a core part of the book, just like it is with Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, but it's also it gets kind of egregious, especially if you're already kind of familiar with those references, where it's just like, yeah, this is just like the barrels in Donkey Kong. And it's like, just stop name dropping. Be interesting.
I think that's what it was, just the name dropping, like, hey, I know I'm nostalgic. I'm into pop culture, whatever it is. But let's speak about the games a little bit. So the first game they designed together is Ichigo, right? They go back and forth, and then they do the other one with Maple World. And throughout the book and the games they discuss, what stood out to you? Which game possibly is something that you could see yourself playing, or that you dislike, something like that? What did you think about the games as a whole?
So it's definitely interesting that Ichigo, the concept of it is like the kid being like lost at sea or whatever. And that ended up being it's such like, it feels like such an indie game vibe, and the fact that it did go like bestseller, best game of all time, that did seem fairly unrealistic.
Sure.
Again,
100%.
fiction, I get it, whatever.
But
with
still.
that said, it's just like, I mean, you do have some like indie niche games that do tend to do very, very well, like IRL,
Yeah.
but that one just seems very like, just very
Unrealistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
I was telling y'all, I love video game development, video game history, stuff like that. And it did feel a lot like the game ideas that Gabrielle Zevin, the author, had felt like they came from more modern sensibilities that she was kind of trying to cram into like a mid 1990s sort of like framework.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like, oh, nobody had great ideas for games like this back then, but it was just like there were so many limitations, and there's so many like, something that made it feel so unrealistic when she was describing those is that not only was it like the process of like, oh, I made a realistic lighting engine in 1993 and it just feels anachronistic with like the advances of technology that these college students who are making their very first game like are making, like there's that whole sequence where it's like, I want Ichigo to move like water, and it took a little while, but I eventually got it. And it's like, in 1993, no, the hell you didn't. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like
They had Unreal Engine in 1993. What are you talking about?
I was gonna say,
oh my God.
Unreal Engine was there, but I mean, when I bought my first, well, not me, my parents got me my first PlayStation in 95. I was like, okay, and I'm thinking back to this book in 93, 94, and I'm like, some of those games I played even then, there's just no way.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
that was not even possible. Like for Ichigo at that time, I was like, no way.
Yeah. And like, putting that aside, Ichigo does sound like the kind of game that I would want to play, and it sounds like a very nice idea. I wish that Gabrielle Zevin had been able to make it into a game. I don't know if that was her aim, but it does feel sort of like oh man, I have this really good idea. Guess I'll write a book about it,
Yeah.
Like it feels a little bit more like I'm not going to say this was actually her motivation.
Like
but
her video game idea was the...
Yeah, but she had no means, which it's very hard to make a game, but she had no means to make it into an actual game. That being said, like, the amount of games that they were able to like crank out in a very short time that were all like genre bending and like phenomenal and like completely different genres from each other and stuff like that, it just ended up feeling like the whole book is supposed to be about like, oh, how does the success of their game company change them? But it just feels like that success was like unrealistic from the start, so it makes me feel less invested in like the drama that it's causing overall.
Just a little fun fact, if you actually go to Gabrielle Zevin's website, you can play Emily Blaster on there.
Really?
Yeah, the poetry game or whatever. It's kind of cool. So
nice.
So they did somehow create that one, which very simplistic, but it's kind of cool. So
yeah.
So did your familiarity with video games, we've kind of touched on this, or lack thereof, matter to your enjoyment of the story?
I saw a lot of reviews where people are like, well, I'm not a gamer, but I really liked this book. And I'm like, I hate to say it like this, but as a gamer, like I said, some of the references felt really trite to me just because I was more familiar with it, but I'm not trying to like take that against the book necessarily, but it just kind of felt super... like I said with the Ready Player One thing, it felt like it was referencing video games for the sake of referencing video games, and not in terms of like I love that at the end in her like notes and acknowledgments, she does say like, for this game these were my inspirations, for this game these were my inspirations, like like she is using her real life influences. Like for the Maple World one, she was like, oh, one of my big inspirations was Stardew Valley, and I'm like, that's the game that I was thinking of the entire time.
Honestly.
Or it was for Sam's game, like later, Pioneers, I think,
Pioneers.
that Stardew Valley was like a big thing. And I was like, yeah, I can definitely see that. But it's just like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to say that it felt like derivative necessarily. Like, if you're going to write a book about like, what if everything about the video game world was the same, except these guys were making these games and they had this kind of influence, like, it feels at a certain point of just like, it feels like you're writing fan fiction about the video game industry, and that's okay, but it's not something that I found particularly interesting, you know?
Sure.
Yeah, same thing. Like you mentioned, Stardew Valley. I mean, because like now we know that Stardew Valley was created by one guy, and it's taken him years. Now he does have like a tiny team helping him, but it's still like, you know, all done by him. It's not published under like a major company.
Yeah.
And we know how long like it takes, because he'll tell us, hey, like an update's coming, but don't expect it anytime soon. And he has
Yeah.
another game he's working on, and that one's taken so long too, because he's still doing stuff for like Stardew, and again, all for free, like following updates, because Stardew's like what, $15 game, and the updates that have come through totally free. So like knowing that, and again, that is much more recent compared to like some of the games that like, in the time span of tomorrow, but like, because it pretty much stays the core three of them for the most part, right?
Yeah.
Like to make the games and develop them. So like you said, that's definitely, because the references, like, again, I play video games, love them, love video game culture, not the toxic stuff, but like knowing how it works to an extent, and then knowing that like these three people, one will go off and develop something in a matter of like,
Seems like a month.
Yeah, seriously.
And they have a hit. You know what I mean?
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like this bestseller. Like you don't do any promo, you don't do any special teasers, no hyping it up. It just seems like very like, I'm gonna make this game and it's gonna be a hit. So that I do like,
Yeah. It's there's also something to be said about the like video game references that have nothing to do with like actual real life games, or like even the games that they were making in the book. There is also like an attempt to weave in like the philosophy of video games and like the mechanics of them into like very symbolic moments of like, basically like if you die in a video, like we were talking about this, it feels like it mentions over and over and over again, if you die in the video game, you can restart. But if you die in real life, you can't. And it just feels like it's trying to make really profound statements about like, this is how real life is different from a video game mechanic. And
we know.
Again, it feels, and I was trying not to be too harsh on it, because I'm like, maybe some people legitimately have never played a video game in their life, and they're like, wow, yeah, I didn't think about it that way. And I don't want to like take that away from people, but like it feels like it's a cliche and a meme that if you die in the game, you die for real, like that sort of thing. It's just like, it felt very much like a, at the very beginning, when they're like playing Super Mario Brothers together in like the hospital like game room thing, and they're just like, they're playing Super Mario Brothers, and she says, "I feel bad for the Goombas. By the way, just so you know, Goombas are the mushroom enemies from Super Mario." And it just feels like the narrator's turning to me, like holding my hand, like, did you ever play a video game? Do you know about one of the most popular video game franchises of all time? You don't. I will tell you. And the NPC line near the end where oh my God. Sorry, I feel like I've been talking forever, but can I talk about the NPC thing really quick? There is a scene near the end, or like near like about 3/4 of the way through, where there's a mash at the Unfair Games office, and the two boys who come in are like, "Oh, there was same-sex marriage in that game, and we're here to Sam Mazer because he likes the gays." And it's just like, okay, already a rough start, I'm not gonna lie. And then at some point, in an life or death situation, Marks, who is like trying to like keep the receptionist safe, is like, "Don't worry about him. He's not important. He's an NPC." And the boys are like, "You're an NPC." And he's like, "Well, that's not the first time I've been called that." And then it flashes back to Sam calling him an NPC when they're fighting over Sadie. And it's like, okay, it's been used enough times that you probably know
What
the
that is.
context clues. But then Gabrielle Zevin turns to you and goes, just so you know, an NPC is a non-playable character. And you better believe I have a list of all of the examples of an NPC just so I can make extra sure you know what an NPC is. Anyway, back to the drama. And it's like, you took the time out of like a scene that kind of had momentum to explain something that people can look up on Google because you wrote this in 2022.
Yeah.
It's anyway.
An NPC is the seller from Resident Evil 4 saying, "What are you buying?"
It's like an Office episode, but not as good, where they're like talking to the camera. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I will say that really briefly that the a gamer growing up at the time, what I didn't like is they talk about PC gaming a little bit. Obviously, Oregon Trail and stuff, original on PC with a huge floppy disk. I played that, but they don't make mention of where their games are selling at all. It's just like this game's a hit. Okay, but for PC, was it for at the time in the 90s? Was it for Sega? Was it Super
Yeah,
Nintendo?
I'm like, was Ichigo on SNES? Because like that's pixel art, and I don't know if they could get an accurate depiction of a limp in a character like walk cycle. You know what I mean?
For anybody who plays Super Mario World or Mario Kart on SNES, right? It's like, yeah, that's your gaming and your graphics are just not possible.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know about y'all, but like the image, like the artwork or the style that I imagined for Ichigo was there's a game called Spiritfarer, and it's kind of like in that style.
Okay.
I was thinking Okami, if you've heard of it.
I
Yeah.
love Okami.
Okami's great, and it's got that very like
God.
painterly, beautiful style.
Yeah, that's
But that came out on either the GameCube or the Wii, but I'm pretty sure the Wii.
it was the Wii first. Yeah.
So that's like, that would have been like about a decade later from whenever they were supposedly developing Ichigo in the realm of the book.
Yeah.
And it's like, I get the whole like suspend your disbelief thing, but like, I have a personal history with like video game development stuff, and it was so glaringly obvious that like so many of these are like, I had a great idea for a game, and I think Ichigo would be a great first game for them to make, even though it probably would have fit mechanically better if they made it later in their career.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. If this book was set into 2010s, maybe it would have made a lot more sense. But
Yeah.
93, 94, to make that, I'm still playing Aladdin and Lion King going back and forth. You know what I mean? So like,
Those are good games.
yeah,
though.
they are good games though.
nah, heck those giraffes.
Well, Lion King is almost an impossible game. So, and no memory cards, right? You just, maybe put it on pause.
Let's not even get into
You hope no one.
Let's focus on the book. Okay.
Yeah.
So how does Dove set the standards for Sadie's work as a game designer, as a woman, and as a wife/partner to both Sam and Marks? What compels her to keep him in her life even after they break up? We kind of talked about this briefly off record. So what do you think about Dove as a character and his relationship with Sadie, basically? Let's
Dove
talk about
sucks.
that. He does.
Dove sucks. Oh my
hated
God.
Dove so
that guy
much.
is absolutely terrible. And we talked about it. We read a book that we did for the podcast too, Catabasis, where the character, she also has like an abusive mentor that the book definitely like makes it known like what he did. Definitely unconsensual. She still, like kind of respected him in a way, but also had it out for him.
Okay.
Because she kind of realized like this guy was this guy was
asshole.
this guy was unpleasant.
Yeah.
He was a dookie guy.
Yeah.
So like, I'm going to resurrect him just so I can make him my slave. Meanwhile, like poor Sadie, she puts up with way too much from this guy. Way too much. And she never really like you said, she never really has that moment of like clarity or just
realization.
kind of like, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I mean, you could attribute to it being a different time, things being a bit more misogynistic.
Sure.
Which is kind of the point of view I see, where like no one's gonna like, even if she says something, no one's really gonna take her seriously. She doesn't talk about her issues. Like it's just that's going through it.
Yeah.
Something that I take issue with for that though is just like this book and this narrator loves to tell you details that you don't need to know that have nothing to do with damn anything. And it's like, okay, that would be, I guess, fine. I wouldn't love reading it, but that would be fine if I also felt like I could feel that the characters were actually feeling something. But the entire book feels like the narrator pointing at the characters and being like, they're doing this now. they feel a certain way about it, but I think it's more important that I tell you that Zoe had some weird thing with her cello, and that has nothing that has nothing to do with anything. I just wanted to let you know a little fun detail about my character. And it's just like, because of that, I feel like it's so weird that there isn't a moment where Sadie is like really reconciling with what was done to her. She has that period of depression that she later attributes to the fact that like she had to get an abortion. But like that, and then like anything after or whenever she and Dove get back together, it's never really like, even in the horrible way that I hate that the narrator is pointing at the character and saying this is their feelings right now, it feels like it was pretty absent, other than like she was in an abusive relationship. Fill in the blanks yourself, you know? And I'm like, you over-explain everything. You might as well either give her dialogue, which I would prefer, or look me straight in my eyes and give me all of your lists about all the way that Sadie was affected by this. I would prefer that over nothing.
Like the stuff that actually matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dove was not a nice guy. He was definitely a piece of work, you know, but I will say I'm not anti-romance or anti-intimacy in books, but like reading it in this book, for me, was cringy.
Yeah, all the sex in this book was so cringy.
It was real cringy. It was
my
just
God.
like, I was trying to, I was listening to the audio and reading the physical at the same time, and I was just kind of like, I think I can kind of skip through. It just came off as very cheesy, gross, like you said, like somebody standing in the room, like I was standing in the room. It just felt weird. The bondage, like you mentioned earlier, we talked off the podcast, but we talked about how like he always asked for her consent, and I'm like, dude, but like,
and it was stated like multiple times by the narrator, like, just so you know, I'm not trying to redeem a character who wouldn't ask for consent by like having him still continue to pop up in the book. He asked for consent every time. It's like he clearly didn't at all.
Which, I mean, great to the, BDSM community. Like, they're all about consent.
Of course.
Fine.
But it seems like it was just kind of, like you've been saying, like kind of pedantic in that way.
It felt like a way for the author to be like, I know that this is like, it felt like she didn't feel like writing an unhealthy S&M relationship. It felt like she was like, oh, it would be great if he did this and this and this. But the readers need to know that I know that consent's important in kink, instead of being like part of why he's a bad guy is because he's not getting her consent.
But
you know what I mean?
Like, was the consent even really there? Because he was still in a position of power over her.
100%.
Like, know, and he was still able to manipulate her, or he knew like, okay, well, this girl's like, kind of in it right now. I can take advantage of that. Mm-hmm. And, like,
yeah, and that's why it's dissonant whenever she's bending over backwards to be like, he got her consent every time. I'm like, I don't believe that this character would, and I'm not being shown that he is. Yeah. So I'm like, why are you throwing in that line just to be like, oh, by the way, I'm not writing bad kink, just so you know. It's like, why did you throw that in there? You're trying to make us not like this guy, or at least think that this is an abusive situation. Instead, you're having her handcuffed to the bed for 13 hours, and all that becomes of that is that he comes and he's like, I like your game. And she's like, forgetting something. And it's like, what?
And then
you're telling me for 13 hours you were just there, and that was just like, you just brushed that off, or what?
She calls Sam too, like, just like tied up.
Not even for help. She's just like, hey, Sam, how you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can talk.
That was a weird part. And then she's all bruised up all the time. It was just weird. The book could have done without that stuff. So speaking of Sam, we haven't talked about him a whole lot. Sam being one of the other main characters of the three. Sam's got his own issues and stuff, but let's talk about the relationship of Sadie and Sam. So they feel that their relationship is deeper than the word love can even reflect, yet they hide many of their biggest struggles from each other. What do you think about the depth of the relationship?
There is definitely like a codependency there. I wouldn't describe it like that, like how it's like, oh, something deeper than love. Like, absolutely not. Like, they definitely had a history.
Yeah.
They knew each other since they were kids. They reconnected. And I think it was Ruby who was saying like, they just kind of like made it a habit of like, even though they would stop talking, they would just like go back to each other like constantly, whether, romantic inclinations or not.
Sure.
Which, I mean, we know they're there, but...
Well, at least for Sam.
For Sam, yeah.
Sadie was kind of like, well, it'll never work type thing, but Sam always thought about it. He talks about never making the move or whatever.
Which kind of gives like incel.
Yeah.
It does.
Incel vibes.
True.
I hated that only came up later in the book where he's like, well, why couldn't we ever make it work? Because several times the book, like, and I don't mind this, the book will like beat you over the head with a whole like, it's something greater than romantic love. It's something greater than like sexual attraction. It's basically in everything but words, it's like platonic attraction or like platonic love is a greater bond than many like romantic relationships can hope to be. Like platonic relationships are wonderful and like worth living your life for just as much as like a partner would be. And I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
I like platonic bonds are very important, and you don't see that a lot in books because it is always, it lends its way to like, oh, will they, won't they? These two are already together. These two are
Yeah.
breaking up, and that's the conflict. But like about halfway through or so, Sam is just like, oh, well, maybe I just never got a chance with her. And it's like, dude, I was rooting for you. You didn't seem like you were. It seemed like both of them, codependent as it might be, felt like a very strong bond with each other that I was like, it's kind of refreshing that it doesn't seem to be moving over into romance, because it has been going on for so long that it's like, you know, like it like if they wanted to do it, they would have done it by now. And instead it's just like he's jealous of Mark's. And it's not because like, oh man, she's going to be, he does say like, oh, she's going to become a different person once she's like partnered up, you know? But it seems to be coming from this place of like, well, I wish I could have been that for her. And it's like, that doesn't feel like how Sam has been throughout the rest of the book at all to me, you know?
Yeah. Do you think, so this is kind of a question I had closer to the end, but it's a good segue. So do you think Sam and Sadie should have ended up together?
No,
Okay. Reasons?
Even if they did, it would not have worked out.
I don't think so.
100%.
The fact that they might have even still worked on a game together in the future astounds me. I'm like, I feel like a working relationship is something that you can give up the easiest out of a lot of different types of relationships.
Yeah.
But also, I know that I come from that not having like that kind of like dynamic with anybody where it's like, okay, we are co-creators, and like that's a very intense thing, I'm sure. But like, I don't see, I would have not seen the need for them to end up together romantically
Yeah.
because they already do, again, codependent as it might be, have a deep bond with one another. And I'm kind of glad that it didn't end up being like okay, eventually they got together. It's like, I'm glad that it didn't end on that note.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have seen the point.
Yeah, I think they definitely trauma bonded, but I think even their friendship at the end had run its course. It was more like, hey, we're acquaintances, we worked together at some point, but our lives just went different paths, and that's okay.
Things happen, you know?
Things happen. So how does Sam's foot shape his sense of self? And how do the sensitivities of his relationship with this part of his body improve and damage his relationships with people he loves?
Okay. So I think, again, it was another thing, just like the platonic bond being like a main thing. It was another thing where I was like, I like the fact that one of our main characters is disabled and has a very complicated relationship with his body, and him reckoning with the fact that he is disabled, even if he doesn't end up identifying that way. Again, it was the 90s. I don't blame him.
Different time, yeah.
Yeah, but he definitely goes through a lot, and even though it's like it's kind of on the nose, it's kind of ham-fisted, the fact that he will make reference to the fact of like, or like the narrator will make reference for him to the fact that he had really bad experiences in hospitals, and like he you know, he felt like it would be better if he didn't have a body at all, and he was in constant pain and stuff like that. You know, like I really like that sort of thing was given focus. But it does, with the exception of the phantom limb pain, which seems to come in whenever we need some drama.
Yeah.
Which it is described, as far as I know, in a way that's like pretty accurate to like the feelings of phantom limb pain. Like it is a very intense thing.
Yeah.
But like at a certain point, once he, you know, it's like, oh yeah, he started wearing contacts, he got braces, he didn't have any struggles being an amputee anymore, you know, and it's just like, he uses a cane.
Yeah.
Which that is still representation. Obviously, I'm not dogging this, but it is very much like once he gets a prosthetic, very, very rarely is it mentioned that he has any difficulties living his life. And I'm not saying you always have to have difficulties living your life as a disabled person, but I know a couple of amputees who would very much disagree with the notion of like, yeah, no, I got a prosthetic, I'm fixed.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think for the time that it was, I mean, you have a lot of the machismo still going around, like I can, you know, I'm strong, and it's like, but at times he could never just be vulnerable, and I thought it did add some interest, some complexity to the story and stuff. But I did for me personally, I kind of struggled. And of course, I'm not somebody who struggles with a disability like that. So I'm just speaking as a reader here that I felt like, why was there the need to add that? I feel like in some ways she made him almost like a sour character at times. And I said like, it's because of his foot. And I didn't like that.
Yeah.
I couldn't relate to that in any way. And I was like, dude, that's not for everybody. You know what I mean? I don't know. I had some difficulty with that part of who that character was. I don't know.
Right. Like it's not, like there's definitely different depictions, and not everyone's just going to be at peace with like their disability. Correct. Or, whatever bodily issues they may have, whatever's going on with them.
Sure.
But like it's definitely, like you said, like it seemed like that was his entire, I don't want to say personality, but that was like his.
But it kind of was.
Yeah.
I felt like it was. And I don't know.
I was telling you earlier, I think before we started recording, that like, especially in the first 3/4, I feel like it eases up a lot better, but not by like a whole lot in the specific issue. By the last fourth, that it feels like during certain dialogue exchanges, you could swap everybody's lines with each other, and you would not be able to tell that the characterization is like, oh, that character said something that feels like out of character for them. Like it feels like for a very long time, characters are talking at each other, and the book says, oh, Sam said, Sadie said, Sam said, over and over again, and that drove me crazy. But I feel like, oh, he's talking about his foot. That's how you know it's Sam talking. Yeah. Oh, she's talking about feeling underappreciated as a woman in the games industry. Must be Sadie.
Yeah.
And it's like, it feels, because of the narrator being like, I'm telling you what these characters' problems are, instead of letting them kind of have any sort of like organic, like working it into dialogue or mannerisms or anything like that, it ends up feeling like I'm telling you their characterization, and I do have to bring up the fact that he has a bad foot multiple times so you can tell who's talking.
Yeah. The one thing I didn't like either was in order to get Sadie to leave Dove, it was almost like, oh, hey, we have to move to California because there's Johns Hopkins isn't on this side. We can't have a surgery for you here. It's only in California. I was like, the East Coast has some pretty good hospitals too. I'm pretty sure of that. So that felt very forced, and like just kind of like she was looking for a way to just get him on the other side. And I don't know. I didn't like that either, but that's just a personal opinion. So,
I mean, she definitely could have gone about it a different way. Like, hey, we have a video game contract, but the office is located in,
Correct.
and they want us to be close in the area for development.
Especially at that time, right? I mean, California was where it was all at, I guess. San Francisco and those areas, that's where Nintendo, or like the American headquarters of Nintendo was at and stuff. So yeah, I feel like it was a little bit kind of, I didn't like that part, but okay, so going back to the games a little bit, who do you think deserves more creative credit for Ichigo and Maple World? So it was their two most successful games. So do you think Sam or Sadie deserve it? Because obviously the media's interpretation of Sam as Ichigo and Mayor Mazer, it affects their working dynamic. He was more front-facing, and they talk about how the author says that Sadie was not very much a people person. She didn't, but then she kind of turns around and blames Sam for being that.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you felt about that. What do you think?
That part bored me to tears, I'm not going to lie.
Okay.
Because it felt like a lot of where the conflict of the entire book up until the mash decides to be the actual conflict of the book, or like the results of it anyway. But like it felt like it would be something that Sadie would bring up periodically to like whenever she was feeling upset and needed to dig at Sam for something, but it didn't feel like she was constantly like facing, like on paper, yes, she was facing a bunch of reviews that were just like, oh, Sam is a genius, Sam Mazer's a genius, blah, blah, blah. And whenever one of her games or parts of her games flops, they're like, oh yeah, that was, Sadie Green, if they mention her at all. But like, I don't know. Again, it was one of those things like her relationship with Dove where it's like, yes, these are real struggles. Yes, these are terrible things that are objectively happening to this character. But it feels like nothing about what she's feeling about the situation pops up unless we need a reason for her and Sam to argue.
Yeah. Like at that time, I know PC Gamer, still around. So it was a big magazine and stuff. But like, unless you're like some really deep nerdist kind of person, nobody's going to go around and say like, hey, Rosanna created this game. People remember the game. They don't necessarily remember the creator. So I felt like it was kind of like, I don't know, it just seemed weird to me. It didn't make sense for the for the book and for the time and for the gaming industry. I know some people do know who the gamers and creators are, and but how often do you go to the end of a game, you finish it, you see the credits, and you're like, oh, hey, look, there's Romeo Rosales. You know what I mean? It's just it just seemed a little weird to me.
You don't do that all the time, Romeo?
Oh, never.
Fake gamer. Good
Fake
God.
gamer.
But like a lot of it, going back to what you said about, or the question, I mean, a lot of it's definitely like rooted in that misogyny. At least it seemed like that was the angle she was trying to get. But again, that's one of those things that really didn't get a lot of room to develop. Because that's something you could attribute to the time, definitely.
For sure.
And like you said, it's like you said, it's definitely one of those like, oh, the game was a success, must be the man. The game was a failure, must be the female.
Yes.
And I say that in relevance to how people like to use female derogatorily.
Of course.
Yeah. It felt like it paid lip service to that part of the games industry more than it actually like wanted to tackle it.
Exactly.
It felt very much like this was all happening in timeline wise. A lot of their game development stuff was happening like pre-Gamergate and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, obviously in actual real life, women in the industry are treated terribly. Still are in a lot of ways, but like especially around that time. Like leading up until until and then past Gamergate and that whole don't get me started, but like the way that the book could have, I think, tackled it was by having Sadie actually talk about it maybe a bit more. I know that like she's a little more closed off, so she's not gonna like just go around talking to everybody about it, but then she's at the like customs agent, and the customs agent is like, do you do video games, or did you do anything I would have heard of? And she goes in her head in this whole thing of like, oh, I just so you know, I'm a Navy SEAL, I graduated top of my class. like very much like, oh yeah, this was my history and blah blah blah. And I know I'm just a lowly woman, but I'm making it in this world. But instead she said, I like to play video games, so I decided to make some. And the agent, who had no idea that she went on that whole like, listen here, you little like thing in her head, is just like, okay, have a good day.
Yeah.
It's just like, it feels like it comes out of nowhere. And that's a whole paragraph of her talking in her head where she hasn't said that many lines to a single character in the entire book. And it's been more than half the book.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree.
That, I'll say, it feels like definitely misdirected rage in that like she's never been able to like really like stand up for herself when it comes to Dove, even Sam. So of course this agent that she doesn't know, even though she doesn't tell them outright, that might be her way of like kind of rebelling a bit. But
I feel like it could have been fixed if
sorry.
Because like I said, she has a bad habit. The author has a bad habit of being like, this character said, not saying like, oh, this character whispered, this character, like saying said over and over and over again, which I don't need a new synonym every single time, but like maybe I feel like it would have benefited from it being like, oh, the customs agent like sneered or something like that. Because as it stands, it just sounds like the custom agent's like, oh, these are the kind of games I like. What kind of games do you make? And she's like, listen here. And it's like, that felt so out of nowhere that I'm like, it would have been like, even like one word could have changed that interaction to something that made more sense.
Yeah.
I know the book is fiction, but have you ever been through customs? They're not talking to you. They don't care.
Yeah.
Like,
I was like,
you got illegal cheese in your backpack? Yes or no?
Yeah, you got a line like, nobody's going to ask you about that. But
well, this is pre 9/11, wasn't it?
True.
So,
Good point.
Maybe
So,
everyone was a bit more chatty and amiable back then.
So you talked about the that took place at Unfair Gaming headquarters. So how did Marx's murder change everything for Sadie and Sam?
I mean, Marx was like one of the, it might be a stretch to call him decent characters, but like,
I mean, he was. He
was likable,
horrible.
and I can't say that about Sam and Sadie in a lot of instances.
Yeah.
Like that, the fact that it was prolonged, like what Marx went through, just for him to still like die at the end.
Well, what did you think about that? We talked about it at book club a little bit. So he didn't die right away. He's like in and out of a coma, an induced coma. He can kind of hear some talking. He hears the doctors. He hears even Zoe visits him in the hospital, and of course Sadie and Sam are there. But like you said, it was just prolonged, and then 10 weeks later he just dies. Like I don't know. For me personally, had he just died there at the headquarters, I think for me that would have just been a better
Like a bit
read.
more like significant.
Yeah.
Here's where I can disagree.
Okay.
Because I will say, unfortunately, the mash was actually something that ended up making me like the book. That not because I think it was like the best thing they could have done to actually get some conflict in there. Like
It's because you're homophobic.
yeah, that's actually why. But no. So basically,
That was a joke.
so basically, it. The way that the narration shifts, it goes from third person omniscient, I'm telling you what everybody's doing, to second person, you are Marx, you are going through this situation. You are seeing, honestly, how lame and pathetic these two shooters were, and I have... That part is lame. Anytime it's describing, like, the actual thing, it's like, oh, these are two white boys who are homophobic, and they're there being like, well, we can't shoot the guy we came here for. What do we do? And it's like, it's so lame. And I'm not saying they had to be like ruthless villains. They were clearly kids, but like it's the whole actual impetus of the shooting is stupid. But like the way that the book actually narrates that experience, I actually genuinely started to like the way that it was being written. And I actually started feeling something for one of the characters for once.
Yeah.
Because, and the irony's not lost on me, that it was the moment that she was like, okay, I'm telling you how everyone's feeling. Now you're feeling it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm feeling it. But like, the irony's not lost on me that that's like kind of cheap. But like, I think Gabrielle Zevin actually does a really good job with the more surrealist parts of that sequence where he's in and out of a coma and it's like being broken up into like moments where he's like kind of conscious and moment where he's not, and he's like listening into like these little moments as like all of the characters who care about him have moments with him and get to talk with him. And I think it's more realistic, especially with like the wounds that he sustained, for it to be something that is prolonged but then ultimately tragic. Like there was hope, and then all of a sudden they're like, no, he is dying, you know. And it's like, that's one of the few moments where I really feel like the video game things are like brought in a little bit better.
Yeah.
Where it's like the imagery of him being like a crow in a strawberry field and him the first time diving down for a strawberry and then like getting attacked and he like wakes up, not fully, he's in a coma, but like he's like a bit more conscious. And then the second time when he's on his way out, when he's dying, he's that same crow going through a strawberry field and he looks down the strawberry field. He's like, that's a trap. I'm not staying there. And it's like representative of him being like, I'm not going back to Earth. I am finally making my way onward. And I think that sequence of the book actually starts mellowing out the terrible narration of it, because from that point on, there's a lot more dialogue. It feels a lot more like down to earth. It feels like everything changes, and like the actual thing of like grief and how do you move on from that, and how do you continue working in that circumstance, and like what does that leave Sadie with, who is like pregnant with Marx's baby. Like I think that it changes the book for the better that all of that happens. And I'm like, I despise the first 3/4 of this book, and I had to throw in nuance all of a sudden because I actually thought the book was like a 6 out of 10 now instead of a 2 out of 10. And it makes me mad.
I will say it was kind of childish, the whole black bandana, red bandana. Like cowboys, you know, we just rolled up with some bandanas.
Oh my God.
I did like though that she added the mashing aspect, only because I think it took place in the early 2000s, but like Columbine was a few years before that, 99. And that was everybody who knows that that's the, I guess the precursor to just everything else that's been going on since then. So I kind of, and again, it's not to advocate or say anything positive about mash, but I you know, given the times, I did kind of appreciate that was kind of put in there to kind of highlight how bad something like that really is, right? We all know it is, so.
Yeah. Wish they had handled it with any more grace.
Because
like, again, it's another one of those like, oh, on paper, it makes sense for them to tackle this right now. But wow,
these guys are caricatures.
This is a stupid way for someone as beloved as Marx to die.
You know? Sadie's like, how bad is it? How does it look? Oh, it's fine. Oh, no, seriously, tell me. Oh, there's blood everywhere. Just come on in. I was like, Marx was dead there, dude. Like, it's not, it was pretty lame. But
like, I do think it was significant in the way that like you said, it finally got like things to mellow out, because it feels like it, even though it took years, but that's finally what got like Sadie and what's his face? Sam. To
real
Samuel.
Sam to like, you know, finally like
Sure.
you know,
Sure.
like it's still like not optimal, but like it finally got them to kind of be like, oh, dang, we kind of need to sit with this and reflect on what we're feeling.
Yeah.
Instead of just kind of like,
But it's that trauma bond again. It's like, oh,
Exactly.
we both lost somebody. Let's
So
get,
it's
let's
like
get back together as
double-edged.
friends.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think happens next for Sam and Sadie? Will they create another video game together?
I think so.
probably.
You think so?
I don't think it's going to be like a big thing that they're like working on. They have the whole team on it. I think it's something they would do in like their spare time, but like the way that they're able to give Ichigo as a property over to like this other game studio,
Which
to
was
make,
very
like, the third
mature.
Very
I would
mature.
very
say that.
mature. Yeah. Like I liked that portion of it because it did feel like we're not like holding on by our like fingernails
Yeah.
onto this property. Let's let people who are inspired by it take it somewhere else. I don't think they're gonna get into like another like big like another hit, but there's partially because I'm like, y'all can't have like 9 of them
In a row,
you know?
maybe more like an indie game. They're kind of
Yeah.
small time. Will they make another game? I mean, given that they're making games in 1 month, sure, right?
Yeah.
It's like we're
They'll
popping them
probably
out.
make 2 games.
Yeah, they'll probably make 2 games, you know? So, friendship wise, though, I think it's strained forever no matter what. They'll always have that, like, hey, we're
Definitely.
talking, but it's always at a distance.
Like
now, I think so.
collaborators at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
There's I'm pretty sure there's gonna be moments where they like think of each other as friends.
Sure.
But like I think from our view, like the readers, like we know that that's just not an option at this point
Yeah.
for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, just to kind of finalize the discussion here. So, what were your overall thoughts on the book? Did you like it or dislike it, and why?
I've already said it. First 3/4 I would call a 2 out of 10.
Okay.
Last fourth, at least for me, it was like a 6 out of 10. I think my rating kind of like middles out to about like what would it be 4?
4 or 5 out of 10?
Like 4 or 5 out of 10 ish max. I can recommend it if it sounds like something that you'd be into. I'm just a lot more particular about the writing side of things and like how things are constructed.
Yeah.
And that's why this book was really egregious to me. But it is a good enough thing. If you just want to see these characters like be successful and see like where that brings them and like what kind of drama that brings, go for it.
Yeah.
I still think the best thing about this book is the cover though.
The nails. There you go. What did you think, Rosanna?
I mean, I did like it. Aside from like, you know, like it definitely had issues
Sure.
and we dove a lot more into those today, so I have a lot more to think about.
Yeah.
But with that said, I still did enjoy the book. The way I would describe it is it starts off cute and it's like, oh, look, they're reconnecting all their childhood history. What is going on? You know?
Yeah.
Like just right after that. It's like, oh, sick kids. Oh. Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
It does have moments where it could be a bit problematic. And again, the characters
Sure.
not as fleshed out as I would have liked.
Yeah.
But it's still like the story was enough to like keep me entertained. I liked it.
I agree.
Out of 5, because I don't want to think about too many numbers, I'd probably give it like
That's
a
fair.
3.5. Like
Okay.
I can see it definitely catering more to like non-video game players.
Sure.
You know, they'll definitely enjoy it more, I would think.
Yeah.
Considering all 3 of us here have a pretty good video game history.
Yeah.
I think we definitely have more room to criticize.
If I can make just like one little small note.
Sure.
If you're an English teacher or like a writing teacher and you want to stress the importance of show don't tell, make people read this book, because that is something that really killed it for me, was the fact that it told so much more than it showed and it really bogged stuff down. It would be a good like piece to
Discuss.
dissect.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think for me, just briefly, it was a 6 out of 10. Again, there were some issues with it. Some of the writing for me as well. I mean, I'm not a professional writer either. I'm just saying that as a reader, I did enjoy it. It did have enough to keep me engaged. There were some problematic things, especially with the gaming aspect and stuff. But overall, I mean, it was definitely a pretty decent book. I would recommend it for anybody who's probably a little bit more novice in terms of the gaming world. So we're not as you know, critique driven as we may have been here in this discussion, but overall it definitely wasn't the worst book we've read in book club. So I
Absolutely.
do
Go
recommend
back
it,
to the
though.
last episode.
Louis like, I don't know, it's up there.
That and this one was just more personal to me than The Life We Bury. The Life We Bury, I was like, there was every chance that I was going to be like, it's fine.
Yeah.
I just ended up hating it. This one I was so excited for, and then I was just like, what is this?
I agree. So to wrap up, just let us know, let our listeners know what you're currently reading. What are you reading?
I'm going to be reading Babel by R.F. Kuang and the upcoming Libros. Israel got me a copy of Babbel as a gift, and I'm very excited to start it.
That's very nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I haven't read anything concrete aside from a single manga book this year.
Okay.
Because we're still like in the new year. But
We
with
just
that
started.
said, I've been on a little bit of a reading slump. But with that said, I do have, of course, I'm going to read our next book, which we'll talk about in a bit. And then same thing for Christmas is a little bit of history about it. There's a book called Alchemized, which is by an author who wrote a very well-known Hermione Draco fan fiction. And because, the J.K. Rowling stuff,
Sure.
and like copyright reasons, they were able to rework it into like its own story.
Oh, they 50
And she
Shades
published.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
and
right.
it published it. It's like 1,000-page book, and it's been like a bestseller. Which I mean,
Wow.
pop off, Queen.
And
There you go.
it's called Alchemize?
Alchemized, yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I know you're going to give a synopsis. I'm also currently reading the next book club book, but I'm also reading All Good People Here by Ashley Flowers. I love true crime. And she has a true crime podcast known as Crime Junkie. It's very popular. It's usually like #1 in the world for true crime, but this book is fiction, but she's a good storyteller. So far I'm liking it. So
Ooh, are you going to throw that in the ring for maybe?
I may. It's a quick read. It's like maybe 300 pages. Nothing crazy. It's not a huge thick book. It's a lot of dialogue. So we'll see. If I enjoy it, I might throw it in there. So
Okay.
we'll see.
Cool. Well, speaking of our next Libros and Libations pick, it's going to be She Kills by Skip Hollandsworth. The murder, She Kills, the murder socialite, the cross-dressing bank robber, and other true crime tales. Which, I mean, that already says a lot about the book in itself. So, so it's available on Cloud Library, both audiobook and ebook. So if you want to check that out before we have our next Libros and Libations discussion, by all means, go check it out.
Yeah.
And it's not long.
No, it's not. It's like 245 pages of the physical, and the audio is maybe 6 hours.
Yeah.
It's a quick
So it's
read.
definitely doable
Yeah.
for anyone in a reading slump.
Yep. Yeah. Rosanna.
But with that said, that's going to end it here for us. Thank you guys for joining us on this fun discussion of tomorrow and
It's a good one,
tomorrow and tomorrow. But yeah, make sure you check out our other episodes and check out our latest book again, She Kills. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. I'm Rosanna.
I'm Lewis.
And I'm Romeo.
And we'll catch you on the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.